Welcome to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back, guys. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things. There's pretty nice development on Ethereum versus Solana, and I think Bitcoin is in a very interesting place. There's a few altcoins that I think are very promising that I got a few entries on that we discussed last week. Gold is ripping through new all-time highs towards hopefully 3,700. We're going to dive into all of that. But first, look, Backpack is going to have something next week. And really, if you have the chance to register for Backpack before this date, sometime next week, do so. If you can only register after, that's fine. But registering before is going to be worth your while. So this content is sponsored by Backpack, and I've been enjoying it quite a lot. There is a bunch of points that you can gather to score a very big airdrop, hopefully sometime this year. And if you use my referral link, you're going to get 20% rebate on your fees. So if you have a MATLAT connect to your wallet and use my ref link, you're basically gonna end up in like a almost free tier for fees, and that's just a giant advantage to score these points and get the most of the airdrop. So come and register. Keep your eyes peeled for that whatever is going to happen next week, and we're gonna have a very, very, very pleasant time there. Without further ado, ETH Sol. This is the last chart I shared on Ethereum versus Solana, and it's actually quite insane how the squiggly is being followed. To recapture what we spoke about is this was basically basically the first big trade, and this was the second big trade into the 5.14 level, and then we've been expecting to see some consolidation. So we're pretty much at the point where I think Solana's outperformance versus ETH is going to subdue a little bit. We're going to probably form a range here, maybe come a little bit deeper here, but in general, I think this is the mode, like the largest part of the move is being done, and Ethereum and Solana are going to, bounce against each other quite a bit. So keep that in mind. Then I spoke about ETH BTC. Essentially what I said is the 420 level is, no, actually what I said was the 355 to 420 level was kind of where I thought this larger move was going to see consolidation, or at least a pullback. So that move is, in my opinion, done. And I think what we're about to see is consolidation and a pullback. And to measure that, I like to look at previous pullbacks during the bullish run. And then I like to measure at least a similar level of pullback. This was a sideways pullback, kind of, it was not very steep to the downside. It was mostly just going to the right. That makes me believe that this is going to be steeper to the downside and probably shorter lived than the duration that we've seen here. So we got the 1 Fibonacci extension and the 1.618 Fibonacci extension down here. Essentially, that gives us this level to work with and the 355 level to work with, which was a previous level that I mentioned that really didn't do anything to the upside. So maybe it's actually going to work to the downside. And the beauty of that level is that it's two levels at once. We have the consolidation here and we have the lows here. So essentially sweep the low, reclaim it, and then at least a bounce to occur back to the highs. So ETH BTC probably along for me from the level here, and then at least a 0.5 to 0.618 bounce. So the high is here, the projected low is here, and then that gives us the 0.5 level and the 0.618 level as a target. So essentially, X marks the target, bam, and then around the bid levels around here. This could fall short and be poor and be part of the larger move down. The other larger opportunity, more like higher conviction trade, if it comes, will be down here. Sweep these lows into the middle of this old range. That would be something special, in my opinion, if it comes. So that's the two levels I want to play. Bitcoin, it's still hovering around the retest levels. I think there's a lot of bearish sentiment and very little follow through. There's essentially a 3-drive pattern here that doesn't really seem to materialize to the downside. So it's kind of one of those situations where, you know, people are celebrating 2% downside, and then suddenly gonna get surprised by a 6% up day. I don't know. It's I think being bearish on Bitcoin again. I'm gonna say it, and we've been trending down, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's retesting support. It's breaking a trend line, and as I've previously pointed out, there really just isn't anything here in this specific chart that tells me that we're anywhere near the end of the cycle, right? So to recap for those people who don't watch these videos regularly, the cycle tops once price manages to get to the orange/red part, and actually touching orange is kind of positive, touching red is where it ends. And in the past, we've seen a lot of rallies where orange, is being tapped a lot of times during the trend up, and then there is a final blow off top touching red. We've seen it time and time again here as well. So I think that's exactly what we're just going to be doing. The general lack of impatience and bearish sentiment is just insane to me. So I don't know. We could fall to 105, whatever. I don't really care, considering that the next leg, in my opinion, once it solidifies, and I've been saying this and I've been wrong about it in terms of timing, but the next level of acceleration is going to be above 200K. And that's where things are really going to start to go to euphoric phases, and price may extend upwards of 300, 400, 500K with some serious pullbacks in between. So that's Bitcoin. It's a retest of the level here. If it can reclaim and hold the 112 level, that's, actually quite bullish. For now, it's a bearish retest. So, I'm not gonna be stupid about it and long it as a resistance, but I'm not really in the mood to sell this. It's a retest. In my opinion, this is just a consolidation, and we're gonna see a resolution very quickly. Don't really have much on ETH USD. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of ETH BTC right now. If we get a sweep below the 4088 level here into the support down here, as a result of ETH BTC weakness, I think that's just a no-brainer long. So essentially, if we get the pullback here, reclaim, that's probably going to set us up for higher. And it might be, because if you look at this move here, there's basically one consolidation here, one consolidation here. I think either one of them is going to be the final support. So either price is in a good position here, or it might actually come down into this one. So buying anywhere from 3,700 to, let's say 4,000, in my opinion, is a very, very good entry. and we're going to be targeting the levels above. Farcoin, I mean, Farcoin's been ranging. We have an old chart in some like 2 or 3 weeks ago in a video where I essentially pointed out to treat this as a range, and if we would come down, sweep all the levels below, that would be the most obvious long that we could get. So essentially, this is the range. Right? And then we got this sweep, and now it's trying to reclaim. So this is a massive structure, in my opinion. And if it's truly like like a bull flag, the upside is also pretty insane, because we measure the move up, which is from the low here to the high here. And then we take the low here, and in a bullish trend, I mean, let's be conservative about it and use the linear scale. That means this is gonna go here and here. So new all-time highs. So to make it clearer, sweep, reclaim, retest, back in the range, target 1. Breakout, target 2. Probably some pullback. Target 3. Not gonna spend more time on this, but if this is not a distribution pattern, but it's a reaccumulation pattern, these are the very basic targets that I'd use to get an exit on. I'm still holding hype, but it's just generally not doing much. So just going up and down. We talked about ETH versus Solana, so that's relatively well established. We got our coin here, our biggest Ponzi coin, the SPX 500, and it's just been trying to sell off after sell off. A lot of funds are max long on it, and I think we're just not able to kind of lose the level here. So as long as we keep holding the level, I think this is just like a reaccumulation pattern into higher. The 1600 remains the target, and people are really ignoring the fact that gold is breaking out. We identified gold down here, and we've basically said that the stop loss would have been here. So, you're pretty late to the trade, and there's no real way of kind of figuring out where to enter this, because this is up only right now. But it says something about the broader market, in my opinion. Appetite for money expansion, protection, which is, in my opinion, probably positive for the stock market in the short term, until labor turns to shit, until there is a liquidity event. And I mean, it might be reacting to the fact that the Japanese 10-year government bond is, it's flirting with kind of not being able to hold the 1.5 level and expanding to the 2% level. If the Fed doesn't cut, this is going to go straight to 2. If the Fed does a cut in September in 2 weeks' time, this might get subdued. And if they do a surprise 50 basis points cut, then this is basically just a deviation going back down. And if that's what gold is hinting at here. We might actually get a 50 basis points cut. So probably not, but a cut is like pretty much guaranteed right now. And gold is kind of signaling something is afoot. This is a giant asset class, a lot of money um, going around in it, and it did like 1.7% yesterday, so that's a lot. The other asset that we talked about last week was, you know, any entry between 1.28 and the sweep of the low at 108. And we basically got that. So I'm actually really bullish on the SPX 6900, and I think there's our two targets from last week. We got basically our fill down here. Our previous axis was 1.85 up here, but I think this is gearing up to go into these two levels up here. So pretty exciting to see what happens there. But this is a massive kind of, what is it? You tell me. It's like a kind of like a falling wedge kind of thing, right? So I'm really curious what's going to happen here. People have been talking about TRX season, and I've been talking about TRX season, and it's really trying, but I don't know if we're going to get it. So I'm just going to leave, like kind of ignore it because I'm focused elsewhere. And that makes it a difficult asset for me to trade because I don't, like the other assets have like really clean, obvious ways to trade them. And this is basically at resistance. If it's going to go super quickly. But the downside still is quite significant because, essentially every time it hit like this resistance, it's also fallen down quite a few times to like 30-40% down. I think that was pretty much it. It's a pretty short video this time, but it seems quite clear to me. Yes, let's talk about Solana. There is a good chance that the downtrend is over, but I would kind of assume that we're going to see something where this is a retest basically, right? Of the downside here. And I would not be surprised to see the reclaim actually stick and see some more upside and then let it fall and sweep the levels below before it actually finishes before it does finish its cycle to the downside, because I think it must come down into a retest of the accumulation area that fueled its last bull run. So this wouldn't surprise me. Something along these lines. So a little bit more upside and then see a sustained downtrend. It's quite possible that Bitcoin is going to see some rally. I mean, it's really not seeing any persistent downside, and this is a major level. So if it's going to bounce, it's it's easily going to go back to the highs and then beyond, which means it's going to put some stress on the other alts. It's also part of my reasoning why I think ETH BTC is having a short-term top, and because ETH BTC had this sideways consolidation the last time, this is probably going to be a steep one to the downside, signaling that Bitcoin might actually be heating up to the upside. Hopefully not to the downside. It's entirely possible, but that means we're pretty much cooked and fucked. And I don't want to be on that side of the market at this moment. And then, Stinky Linky, fucking love it. We came into a level that I wanted retested in the 22 range, And I think we're setting up for the bounce. So, we just pull this to the right as a general kind of guideline. And I think the target is, to be expected around 38. And maybe even higher, because this is a Livermore cylinder. So we can draw, and this is going to be ugly when I draw it, but it's just to give you a quick gist. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that here you get like the expansion. So 8, 9, 10, right? 8. Whoa, that's an ugly 8. 8, 9, 10. So very bullish on Link, very bullish on SPX 6900, very bullish on Backpack, guys. Literally, trust me, come join, get those points, get ready for the airdrop, and get ready for whatever product launches are going to happen in the near future. And then not so bullish on ETH, mildly bullish on Bitcoin, and gigantically bullish on gold. So I think gold is really signaling something larger here. And the only thing that we really need to keep an eye on, to summarize everything that I've said, is the Japanese 10-year yield. Hopefully this can stay at the level it's currently at, and then we're going to see a significant cut in 2 weeks' time, which is going to drive this down. And my reasoning is that gold is already anticipating this, knowing this is going to happen, and therefore expanding its value. The other thing that I, to keep an eye on, but it's quite steady right now, is the long-term U.S. futures, T-bond futures. If this breaks down and goes to 100, that means the monetary system is pretty much fucked, right? So also a reason for gold and Bitcoin to rally, with probably some kind of fuck up downside, because people need to cover their losses on assets, for example, like treasury bonds. I'm going to cut it short here because I think that was it, and hope you guys find that interesting, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.